Welcome to the Dire Wolf Show, where we believe that America is exceptional and that our constitutional rights should never be infringed. I am Dire Wolf. On our show, we bring you the truth and debunk fake news. If you love laughing at the insanity of the regressive left, sit back and relax. Boy, do I have a show for you. Welcome back, Wolfpack. Dire Wolf here for our weekly news recap from behind enemy lines on YouTube, where speech is not free and the truth is demonetized. Also on Rumble and Twitch and all those other great places. Alongside me is my co-host, Fox Trevize. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, not too bad. Just apparently 7 minutes in the past. It must be a new update, either between Windows 11 or Streamlabs, where every time I open Streamlabs, it freezes my taskbar clock. And so I'm just sitting there just chatting away with you. And all of a sudden I realize, wow, it's been 3:55 for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pretend to be outraged that we are 5 minutes late when we just completely skip shows and are far later than this on a regular basis.
Yeah, for real.
So we're professionals.
So I'm fine. Just apparently frozen in the ever-present 3:55 p.m.
You might be a time wizard.
I am definitely a time wizard. There is no might about it.
All right. Well, thank you for everyone who supports this show who currently employs a time wizard. How many people out there can say
I'm not black?
Hey, they didn't know that until you said it.
That's fair.
Damn it. We almost had a diverse cast.
I did a masked face reveal once.
Right.
So,
you were wearing whiteface.
Yes, exactly. Definitely.
Which is okay, but blackface is not. Thank you for...
Oh, there we go. I was trying to figure out if we were live on DLive, but it's fine.
Including Kaylet, Orime, Nathan, Cameron, Tetris Freak, Slowpoke, Thunder Erican, the White Lion, Timberwolf, and the White Wolf, and Adder Lupus, and all of you guys. We appreciate everything you do. If you don't support us financially, it's all right. Just please like, share, subscribe, all those fun things. Because obviously YouTube is trying to kill us, but conditions might get slightly better on Twitter soon. We'll see.
Maybe. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Alrighty. Well,
opening comment or funny comment.
Okay, so once again, I was not prepared.
We're gonna see,
even though I did it myself. So, alrighty, let's jump into this here. So, as we always do, we will. As is now traditional, we'll open today with some clips of Joe Biden just having a completely normal time. Some have claimed that Joe Biden, the elderly midwit, is weak on foreign policy. But this week, Joe Biden took perhaps the strongest stance ever taken by a commander-in-chief against Russia. Let's hear Joe, in his own words, strike fear into the hearts of our enemies.
we're going to seize their yachts, their luxury homes, and other ill-begotten gains of Putin's kleptocracy. Kleptocracy, and the guys who are the kleptocracies. We're going to seize.
Oh yeah, I am.
God.
What's that?
Shaking in my boots, man. Shaking in my boots.
Well, I mean, you think you're shaking in your boots? Imagine our enemies. I imagine they are quaking like earthquakes in their boots. All of that kleptocrating has Joe Biden pretty busy this week. Almost as busy as the time that he did 48 tours in Iraq. Or was it Afghanistan? Let's watch.
It's amazing what you do. Realize how many lives you saved.
Yes, sir.
No, you really do. I've been in and out of Afghanistan, Iran, and Iraq over 50 times, 48 times. And now what we're doing in Ukraine, been in there.
That's right. He's been to Iraq and Afghanistan. Or was it Iran? 50 or maybe 48 times. I mean, Dyer, I mean, come on, man. You gotta get those numbers up. You haven't been deployed 48 times. You just slacker.
He's put me to shame.
Yeah.
Joe's 48 tours of duty explain the intense military prowess that he is exhibiting in the Russian invasion of Ukraine, also Afghanistan.
Yeah, you sit there, you complain to me every day. You just work morning, noon, and night, Saturdays, Sundays, and every day, 48 hours a day. And you don't got nothing on Joe Biden. He's the hardest working president we've ever had.
Clearly.
Probably hardest working member of the military because he's, the commander in chief. So,
Yeah, he clearly isn't taking, most of the day and off and barely giving a single speech or a single appearance maybe in a day. Might be like one a week. Okay, so unlike all of you larks, Joe saw this war coming from a mile away, and he made preparations.
Before Russia attacked, we made sure Russia had javelins and other weapons to strengthen the defenses so Ukraine was ready for whatever happened.
You heard that right. We gave weapons to Russia, apparently.
Just to make sure they were strong before they invaded. Wow.
Biden's greatest ally. Putin.
Wow, that's man. I mean, I know that we arm our enemies as, just policy now, but typically we didn't tell the American people that. We just did it and kept that kind of secret so the military industrial complex could just kind of keep functioning. I mean,
what's even more embarrassing is we apparently armed them and they're still losing this badly.
That is true. Let's see here. So, but sometimes the horrors of war are just too much, even for someone as battle-hardened as Joe Biden, with his 48 tours in Iraq or Afghanistan under his belt. It's enough to make anyone wish for those simpler times. Here is Joe reminiscing on those halcyon days of the Democrat Party that he used to know.
Even back in the old days when we had real segregationists like Eastland and Thurman and all those guys. But at least we end up eating lunch together.
Oh yeah, Joe, those were the days. It was so much easier for you Democrats to be open about your beliefs. Now some people will tell you that this was before the parties switched. Yes, the DNC was full of segregationists, but they all switched to Republicans, sometimes after October Juneteenth and before Toyotathon. That's the approximate timeline of when the great flippening happened. So the great switchening isn't the only myth the Dems are pushing. Earlier this week, Joe Biden really let the cat out of the bag when he revealed perhaps the DNC's biggest secret.
One
ever.
quick thing before we get to that secret. I just want to point out, he mentions Thurman, right?
Yeah.
He was a Democrat through and through from 26 June of 2003. So the segregationists he's talking about were other Democrats.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was So again, that was before the big switch dire. Like that and other myths. So again, the biggest secret that the DNC has, Joe Biden accidentally revealed that this week in this clip. Let's listen.
Now, there have not been many senators from Delaware. It's a small state. As a matter of fact, there's never been one.
What?
Now, there have not been many senators from Delaware. It's a small state. As a matter of fact, there's never been one.
Whoa. That's right. That's right, folks. Go ahead.
So that's right. Delaware has never had a senator before. It's quite possible, not even a state. Yeah, they've been lying to us. Think about it. Have you ever been to Delaware? No, you haven't. You shouldn't go there because it doesn't exist. And no one has gone there either because it doesn't exist. Biggest election fraud organization in history? Joe wasn't kidding. They invented an entire state to pad the Electoral College.
Yeah. So, again, I mean, that's the biggest secret ever is that there is...
How do you get any 1 million votes? You create new states.
Yeah, definitely. Let's
there have not been many senators from Delaware. It's a small state. As a matter of fact, there's never been one.
Small state, more like no state. Am I right?
Oh my god.
All right. Well, I will continue until somebody tells me not to. I will continue just making absurdly linked together storylines to try to make sense of all of Joe Biden-ism clips that come out during the next week.
It's not your fault that Biden doesn't make sense and that you're forced to try to find out what he's saying.
I mean, I would say I weaved a pretty compelling narrative out of try to make all of that consistent.
I think that you gave a more charitable description of what he was saying than, any normal person would try to listen to him and figure out what he's saying.
Definitely.
So good on you.
All right. Well, our first real story of the night is Twitter. As I'm sure many of you know, Elon has so far been very successful in his bid to purchase Twitter. And as usual, this has the left completely panicked. Let's watch about how panicked the left is, about what they say could be the end of democracy if Elon is allowed to buy Twitter.
You own all of Twitter or Facebook or what have you. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't even have to be transparent. You could secretly ban one party's candidate or all of its candidates, all of its nominees, or you could just secretly turn down the reach of their stuff and turn up the reach of something else. And the rest of us might not even find out about it till after the election. Elon Musk says this is all to help people because he is just a free speech, philosophically clear, open-minded helper.
The horror. Could you imagine if somebody could do that?
Could you imagine? Wow, what a crazy idea that one political group could use a social media platform to change the results of an election, to control what people have access to.
Turn up the reach or down the reach.
What if they started shadow banning people? Can you imagine?
My goodness.
What if they gave unnatural reach and advertising to channels that are wholly unpopular and hoping to spread their message? It's like, imagine if they could do that. They did.
That's imagine all. Oh wait, we don't have to imagine.
That's kind of the genesis of why Musk is doing this.
I mean, man, way to give away. I mean, that was almost as bad as giving away that Delaware doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. And the funny thing is, so he was saying that describing Elon as being in favor of free speech as if it were a bad thing.
Yeah, free speech and scare quotes.
Wait, so you're not in favor of that? That kind of makes sense. Yeah, that's why you are projecting on Elon.
Yeah,
he might use this the power of Twitter to change elections and control politics because that's what you would do.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a little on the nose, but do you think that projection and accusing your enemy of what you yourself are doing, do you think that maybe kind of applies here, right on the nose of it?
Yeah, and it's so blatant. I can't believe he actually said it.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus. That was pretty based take, though. I mean, that's what the right's been worried about for the last 7 years. So,
yeah, and we have so much evidence that that's actually what was happening. That it's not unfounded fear. So now that it seems that Musk's deal will be going through, the questions now turn to what is Elon going to do with it?
All right. Well, from the Daily Wire, let's hear. Legend: Elon Musk may step in as temporary CEO after sealing the Twitter deal. All right. So Daily Wire says, billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk may be set to include temporary Twitter CEO to his list of titles once his deal goes through and he becomes the owner of the social media platform. According to a report from CNBC, Elon Musk is expected to serve as temporary CEO of Twitter for a few months after he completes his $44 billion takeover of the social media company, sources told CNBC's David Faber. Elon Musk is planning to take over as temporary CEO after he finalizes the acquisition. Legend. A. Pompiliano tweeted. It's not that I don't appreciate the context of what other people are saying, Daily Wire, but you don't necessarily need to include it as like news. Like, I don't know. I guess I would like to see like, oh, just like in the middle of a random story, like, and at Direwolf Media said this like banal take about something. It's like, thanks? Question mark. All right, so they continue. Radio host Clay Travis added, Elon Musk will be Twitter's acting CEO when he takes over in a few months. The stock is up nearly $2 in an awful market today on the news of this and additional funding partners. So yeah, so like we're going to get into the economy in a later segment, but as you may have noticed, the economy is even quicker going down the cliff right now. And somehow Twitter was able to, Twitter, just serially underperforming stock, is somehow able to buck the trend of the entire market dropping by thousands of points every day.
Yep.
All right. So, following the news that Musk secured a deal to purchase Twitter, the future of the platform was called into question by a number of people, including the relatively new CEO, Parag Agrawal. Well, if he's leading the
soon
chart,
to be fired.
Yeah, if he's he's going to be adding to that unemployment number. If Parag is one of the ones leading the charge on questioning the future of the platform, good. I mean, so like if you heard that like Xi Jinping was questioning the future the world was going in, like, would that be good news or bad news?
I mean, that sounds like good news to me. Anything that Agrawal doesn't like is probably a good thing.
Yeah, well, when your enemy is upset at the direction the battle is going, that means you're doing well.
Yeah, the Japanese emperor was pretty upset the way the war was going after he got nuked twice.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know about this whole U.S. takeover thing. I'm calling into question the future the world's going. It's like, yeah, exactly. That's why we're doing it.
Disapprove.
Good. So, I mean, if there was any question about whether or not Elon was going to be successful, or any question about if he was going to do what he says he's going to do, a good proxy. I mean, the only way to know for sure will be to make it to the future and see what he does. But as a good proxy for predicting that, if you look at who is criticizing him and upset that he's doing what he's doing, if people like Parag are on that list, you can be pretty sure that's a pretty good indicator that Elon is on the up and up with how he's going to change Twitter. Let's see here. So Daily Wire continues by citing Reuters. Your own wire service? Why do you got to call it on Reuters? Come on, Daily Wire. All right, so according to Reuters, Musk already has a new CEO in mind once the deal is closed. Quote, Musk has also lined up a new chief executive for Twitter. One of the sources added, declining to reveal the identity of that person. He told Twitter's chairman, Bret Taylor, earlier this month that he does not have confidence in the San Francisco-based company's management. Reuters reported in late April. Parag Agrawal, who was named Twitter's chief executive in November, is expected to remain in his role until the sale of the company to Musk is completed. Parag Agrawal is like me trying to talk with toothpaste in my mouth. According to CNBC, Musk has secured another $7.14 billion in commitments from a number of hand-picked investors. Committees range from $1 billion from Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison to $5 million from Honeycomb Asset Manager, which invested in SpaceX. If there's one thing that Elon's really, really good at, it's raising capital. So there's a lot of like history on like Elon like came from like a wealthy family. Well, he didn't. That wasn't. It was wealth, but it wasn't enough wealth to do what he's done. A lot of his initial startup money for PayPal and then Tesla and then SpaceX was him just going around and convincing people to invest in him, going and convincing these venture cap funds to invest in him, and he's pretty good at doing that. So I wouldn't be. I think Twitter was wrong to think that they could bet against Elon being able to raise that much money, and clearly they were. Let's see here. So, and Musk is also talking to former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey about investing as well. Twitter co-founder Jack Dorsey may back it, and Musk is talking to him about the possibility of contributing shares immediately or before the closing of the merger, CNBC reported. Musk has also been very vocal about his plans for Twitter, saying that he wanted the platform to first and foremost be committed to supporting free speech and the most, quote, broadly inclusive form possible. Speaking from the Met Gala a few weeks ago, red carpet back on Monday, Musk also noted his commitment to ridding the site of bots, which was another story that we haven't had as much time to go into. Is what is the effect of Elon purchasing Twitter been? Well, immediately we saw this massive upsurge in followership for right-wing figures and a massive decrease in followers for left-wing figures, like some of them in the hundreds of thousands. You had people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. She had gained something like 100,000 followers over the course of like 2 or 3 days.
It's like someone just removed the thumb off the scales.
Yeah. Crowder, I think, was up 200,000.
Yep.
And then you had people like who's the girl Sean Hannity at MSNBC?
Oh shit.
The lesbian. I almost said the other word.
I don't know her name.
I don't
Maddow?
Yes, Rachel Maddow. It's not that Dyer and I have, brain
Wow.
fog. It's just that she's such a, non-important person. It's just my brain just didn't keep track of her.
There's just so many options. I didn't know who to pick.
Yeah, so she lost something like 60 to 100,000 followers in the same amount of time as well. And there was reports a while back that Twitter had been essentially lying to the investors, saying that they had more activity on the site than they really did because they were spoofing it with bots. So you had on one side of it, they had what were at this point illegal downranking on conservative accounts, and the only reason why it would be illegal is because they testified to Congress that they weren't doing that. So they had to get rid of that because essentially what Elon purchased was evidence of perjury against Congress.
And that evidence might not all be gone, by the way.
Yeah, it might still be there. So you got so on one side you've got the shadow banning and the suppression that they had to remove, and on the other side you had all of these bot accounts made by Twitter, very likely made by Twitter, bot accounts to follow left-wing activists to try to boost them in the algorithm. And you don't have to have bias in the algorithm if you're spoofing the metrics going into the algorithm. So maybe the algorithm is perfectly balanced and neutral, but if Twitter is feeding it junk data, simulating interest in left-wing accounts and simulating a decrease in interest in right-wing accounts, well, the algorithm's going to think, well, fair and balanced as left-wing accounts get promoted. And maybe the reality is if you pull out those bots and you pull out those suppression, maybe the Twitter algorithm works brilliantly. I bet you it does, because I write algorithms, and I bet you the people that write the algorithms wanted to make a good program, and the people that are creating these spoofed accounts and creating the suppression metrics, I bet you those are a different group of people. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Twitter algorithm's actually really good, and the only reason why it seems bad is because Twitter's simulating interactions on one side or the other.
Yeah, most likely. But yeah, so it looks like someone's removed the thumb off the scales, and now it seems like if this is an example of the trend of where we're going, Twitter might become finally, not a trash heap again.
A lot of people also who were previously banned had their accounts reactivated. I, however, have not. Fox Trevize is still banned. Cries. And do you remember the reason why I got banned, Dyer? I do.
I think you were mocking like the some dictator.
I had questioned whether or not it would be rational for us to perhaps nuke Iran, whether or not that was on the table, and that was considered hate speech. However, we have a tweet later on today, in a later segment, of somebody suggesting the trolley problem of murdering the Supreme Court justices, and they put that on Twitter as a hypothetical. But I'm not allowed to hypothetically ask whether or not we can nuke Iran. The hell with the gives.
This doesn't seem very consistent, does it?
Yeah, it does not. Alrighty. Well,
are they afraid they're going to actually coax someone into actually nuking Iran? Is that what they're worried about?
yes. Oh, won't someone rid me of this country?
Yeah. Oh, well, some guy I don't know who is on a YouTube channel. He suggested nuking Iran, so I can go out and do it.
Well, so when it comes to so what's interesting about political speech is inciting violence that's limited in scope to your fellow citizens. If in politics we have to be able to, the necessity dictates that we have to be able to make recommendations and have requests of how the U.S. conducts foreign policy. And clearly the left has no problem war hawking. So why can't I advocate for that as well? I mean, essentially the point of what I was doing was literally to incite a politician to advocate for nuking Iran. But inciting wasn't an accident. I actually did intend to incite it, and that is protected political speech.
After attacks by Iranian forces on U.S. forces, there was a bunch of politicians on both sides of the aisle calling for missile strikes against Iran.
Yeah, and so is that inciting violence? It's obviously not. I mean, yes, in the strict sense, but not in the sense of what the Constitution allows for and protects. You can't incite violence against specific people that are your own citizens, but you can, for better or worse, you are allowed to incite violence in foreign policy. I mean, they're just the alternative is that we would only ever allowed to be peaceniks for foreign policy, but we that's clearly not. That's like self-evidently not true. So my speech was perfectly valid. Elon, let me back on, please. I want to tweet again. All right. Well, so our next story is related to Elon buying Twitter because, well, you can't just, as that MSNBC anchor said, the danger of somebody owning Twitter is that they could, turn up certain political rhetoric and turn down certain political rhetoric and maybe shadow ban an entire party's candidates. Wouldn't that be terrible?
Imagine that.
Yeah. And so since that will now not be happening, the government has stepped in. Let's see here. So on the heels of the Elon X Twitter announcement, the Biden administration had an announcement of their own. The creation of the Disinformation Governance Board, or the DGB. Not to be confused with the KGB. That one is bad. But the GDB, or the BG... I almost got through that. I was so close. So close. The creation of the Disinformation Governance Board, or the DGB. Not to be confused with the KGB. That one is good. But the DGB is... the KGB is bad.
I can't believe it.
But the DGB is good because that one will only be used against bad people.
With as much as you stumbled over that, you think I wrote it. But you wrote it.
No, you would think that I wrote it and that you were reading it.
Either way, just as bad. So, before we get started, I want to do just a quick dictionary tour of the terms misinformation and disinformation. The Democrats have put a lot of disinformation about the definitions of these words, so let's set the record straight. So misinformation is false information that you think or believe to be true. You're not lying. You believe that information, but you're wrong.
Yes.
Disinformation is false information that you know is false and you don't believe in, but you're still presenting that information. So it is intentional. It is a lie. Misinformation is just being wrong. Disinformation is lying. The left will often conflate the two to benefit their narrative. Disinformation is also what is known as a term of art, an artful term perhaps. When a person or private group spreads lies, we just call it lying. Disinformation is a word reserved for the government agencies like the CIA, the NSA, the FBI. These agencies, no, they don't lie to you. They just disinform you. It sounds better, but it's not. In fact, it's far worse because it's lies you paid for. The CIA uses this tactic to great effect against our enemies and also us.
Yes. Sometimes also us. But yes, no, so disinformation as a word in the modern lexicon, disinformation, its origin is from describing what it is that certain intelligence agencies do to foreign actors on behalf of, presumably the U.S. citizen. And, typically it's on behalf of themselves, but, presumably it's against on our behalf. Let's see here. So when you hear disinformation, like, you as a person, you can lie, but you aren't disinforming. Disinforming is an official action. Just like Dyer, his, military squad, they can go invade a country, and that's not the same as you getting together a gang of people and invading your neighbor's house. There's a difference in the officiality of it. It's condoned. It's legal. It's allowed. It's a particular type of military operation. So the term disinformation is meant to describe only government action. You as a citizen cannot purvey disinformation. Now, the left has been saying otherwise. They've been saying that you are purveyors of disinformation as private individuals, but that's just not true. But because they're saying that, what that causes is because other foreign governments can create disinformation to our population. Now the government can look at us and say, well, just like Russia creates disinformation, you, Direwolf, as an individual person, you also are the same thing as the KGB. You are a purveyor of disinformation, which is
that's true, because they've been saying that we are pushing Russian disinformation, that we're acting as agents on behalf of our adversaries in spreading disinformation to our people.
Triumvirate in chat on DLive has figured me out, and you know too much. All right, guys. So the Disinformation Governance Board, or the DGB, will be restricted to only looking at foreign state actors. Right.
Right.
No. Well, to answer that question, let's look at who will be running the board. The DGB will operate under the Department of Homeland Security, which was created by the Patriot Act and is, never exceeded its boundaries at all, ever. The DHS is currently headed by Alejandro Mayorkas. He selected Nina Jankowicz to head up the DGB. So who is this Nina person? Well, no one seems to know.
Questions on the Disinformation Board.
Sure.
Yesterday you had told me that you were not familiar with Nina Jankowicz. I'm wondering if you have more information on her today. Also, Secretary Mayorkas said that he was not familiar with statements that she had made surrounding the Hunter Biden laptop. And I'm just wondering, how was she hired if you in the White House are not familiar with her, if Mayorkas is not familiar with her statements? What's the process for putting her into a position like this? Who's in charge of her hiring?
Well, let me give you a sense of who she is. She's an expert on online disinformation. She was formerly in the Wilson Center she was formerly a disinformation fellow at the Wilson Center. She's testified before Congress as well as the United Kingdom and European Parliament, advised a Ukrainian foreign minister, particularly relevant in this moment, under the auspices of a Fulbright Public Policy Fellowship, and overseeing Russia and Belarus programs at the National Democratic Institute. Any hiring decisions are up to the Department of Homeland Security, but this is a person with extensive qualifications.
Did any of that mean anything to you, Dyer?
One thing the short answer is no, but something also stood out to me was that this person briefed the Ukrainians on disinformation. And what are we even getting out of Ukraine?
Yeah, the ghost to Kiev. Did she have anything to do with that? Like, my God.
Was she teaching them how to disinform? Maybe we're misunderstanding what she's saying. Maybe this person's really good at lying.
And I will. I will remind you that Direwolf Media reported on the initial Ukrainian invasion with the utmost professionalism and scrutiny on the details. We did not present to you as true the Ghost of Kiev or Snake Island or any of the dozen other stories that came out initially that everybody was just losing their minds, soy face, open mouth, gaping at. Look at all these crazy things going on in Ukraine. None of it ended up being true. And we, instead of doing the clickbait thing that so many of our, I'll call them peers, even though they're not, but our peers in the commentary
We're
space.
so much better.
Exactly. Our peers in the commentary space. So many of them were just like, yep, I'll clickbait that. Yep, I'll talk about that I'll waste your time, the viewer, for hours at a time talking about these things that turn out to be fake 2 weeks later. We didn't do that. We talked about them and said, none of this is confirmed. We don't even see how this could be possible. Here's the non-sourcing on it that other people are claiming. And we warned you that everyone else was going to be talking about these things as if they were real. We were completely correct on that. And we warned you that they probably wouldn't be. And we were also completely correct on that. And it does beg the question. That was a great catch, Dyer. If she was briefing the Ukrainians on disinformation, and the Ukrainians appear to be extremely good at creating these false narratives, more recently we had, they were going to blow up Chernobyl, and it was going to detonate a nuke there or something. All that stuff as well. They've been really good at that. So it does beg the question, as Dyer pointed out, did Nina have anything to do with that? Did she?
I think that what it demonstrates is that her job has not been combating disinformation. It has been controlling the narrative and showing how to showing the resources that states have to create propaganda and disinformation so they can control the approved narrative and fight against the aggressors or their adversaries' narratives. That's what she's an expert on, is information warfare. And they're saying disinformation as if she is a hero fighting against lies, when really she is just a liar who's fighting against other liars.
Yeah, Dyer, if somebody called you an expert marksman, would you assume that they implied that you were excellent at stopping bullets from hitting other people?
No, that's not what that means at all.
Oh, okay. Because, she's an expert at disinformation. Why would I assume that means that she's expert at, deflecting it? I would assume that means that she knows how to create it. It's kind of like, those anti-sexual harassment trainings they make us go through, which was, just a genius move by the patriarchy, right? It's probably the best thing the patriarchy's ever figured out.
We have all these, and now I know how to do it.
Exactly. We have all these classes explaining how to, if you do it like this, you're gonna get caught. Maybe that's her. Maybe that's the way her disinformation.
Yeah, I would have got my sexual harassment and training. I came home and told the wife, "Hey, honey, great news."
Hey, sugar tits.
I got some
that's Bering's wife. Sorry. Direwolf is not Bering.
I am not Bering. I'm about 90% sure I'm not Bering.
The world may never know. All right. So there was Jen Psaki saying that she had no idea who Nina Jankowicz was yesterday, then apparently read her Wikipedia page and just started blathering about all of these accolades that I guess mean something to nobody. I don't know. Let's see what else they had to say about Nina.
You just outlined a lot of, efforts that sound very worthy, but you've got someone from Homeland Security telling people how they should vote. How do you explain that to critics who say that doesn't sound right to me?
This is an individual who will be overseeing the work of that board. Personnel decisions are up to the Department of Homeland Security. I just outlined the extensive history and background this individual has, but I think what's important to note here is what the board is doing, which is continuing what is important disinformation-related work that began under the former administration.
Thank you, Adder Lupus, for the $5 donation. He said, how goes it, guys? Hope you are having a good day. Hope any mothers watching are having a good Mother's Day as well. Absolutely.
And if you did not call your mother, call them. Dyer.
Yes. So I definitely told the wife Happy Mother's Day 4 times.
That's kinky.
It's her kink. She has an appreciation fetish.
Oh God, we're not going down that trail. I said rabbit hole. That would have been a mistake too. Alrighty. So who is Nina? Well, it is still unclear who this is, but she'll be the head of the DGB. In the meantime, do we have any information on what the department will do? So we don't seem to know who much about the person running it, but do we know what it is that they'll be doing? Well, spoiler alert.
There's a new report that the Department of Homeland Security is setting up a disinformation governance board to tackle misinformation ahead of the midterms. Secretary Mayorkas said that part of its intention was to tackle misinformation in Hispanic communities especially. Can you give us an idea of what this board is going to be doing, what their authority would look like?
Sure, Jackie. I really haven't dug into this exactly. I mean, we of course support this effort, but let me see if I can get more specifics. We know that there has been a range of disinfo out there about a range of topics. I mean, including COVID, for example, and also elections and eligibility. But I will check and see if there's more specifics.
Okay, so that's not exactly a clear-cut mandate, if I've ever heard one, which leaves us to try to piece together what it will be on our own. This exchange between Senator Cruz and a Biden administration official gives us some clues as to what will be considered disinformation by this board. Let's see what they have to say.
So was the Hunter Biden laptop misinformation?
I'm not familiar with all of the details of those stories. What I know is that Russia, notably, and other players too.
Except it wasn't Russia. It's an accurate laptop. Now the New York Times has acknowledged that after the election, and yet the head of this disinformation board happily pushed out that it was disinformation. That is a code word for things that are politically inconvenient. Let's turn to a.
All right. So, that's what the certain members of the Biden administration think is disinformation is still that laptop. So anybody purveying the laptop, they'll now be in the sights of the disinformation government.
And that's
board. One
out of many examples. There's the whole Russian collusion. There's the Russian dossier. There's the piss tapes. There's the freaking even saying that Smollett was actually attacked is disinformation. But we have basically anything CNN, MSNBC, or ABC has said. I'll just leave it at that. That's disinformation. But we have members of Congress on the Democrat Party and are speaking lies, saying things that didn't happen, and then the news media is parroting it, and then a month later it comes out to be completely false. Hands up, don't shoot. A complete lie. And yet those things are not considered misinformation or disinformation. No. It's the true things that did happen that they didn't want to talk about. Those are things they call disinformation, so that we don't talk about them.
Yes. So, as Dyer pointed out, there's a lot of things in recent and even more distant memory. Unfortunately, some of that stuff has actually become like history now. It's not just current events. These are events that happened coming on 10 years ago.
But why isn't it history?
I'm gonna. Sorry. All right. This is the end of the show, guys. We'll see you never. Okay. So, as you pointed out, Dara, it's very clear based off the way the media and Democrat politicians have been reporting over the last 5 to 10 years. We're the ones that are disinformation. It's the political adversaries, things that are inconvenient for the Democrat Party, and some again we because no one seems to know who Nina Jankowicz is. No one in government seems to know what the Disinformation Governance Board is going to be doing. We're left to piece it together ourselves. And that was a couple of clues there. And a much bigger clue is some statements that Joe Biden made recently as to who the current enemy of America is.
Because this MAGA crowd is really the most extreme political organization that's existed in American history, in recent American history. Because this
really the most extreme, who was it that was burning down city blocks and attacking people in the streets, blocking roads, attacking federal buildings? Who was that was doing it for years on end? Who?
Yeah, that would have been the Democrat Party.
Antifa, BLM, and egged on by politicians, paid for, the bail paid for by Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. It wasn't just that their supporters were going out and doing these violent things and causing billions of dollars of damage, disrupting economies and disrupting people's lives, going out and doing nakedly political violence against jurors and judges, going out and doing all this violence, and it was supported by the politicians. It wasn't just their supporters. It was something that they supported. Now, you have one example where some conservatives broke some crimes that are far less severe than anything BLM or Antifa has done, and they did it without the condone or the support of conservatives, and they say that's the biggest terrorist attack that's ever happened in America. But they ignore that any one night of BLM or Antifa rioting was 10 times worse.
Yep. So you can see here, too, you got President Joe Biden and President Joe Biden tweeting out on the same day here. You got on the left from the POTUS account, this is a national day of prayer. No matter how or whether we pray, we are called to look outside ourselves. Let's find it in our hearts and prayers, the determination to put aside our differences, come together, and truly see one another as fellow Americans. And then you have Joe Biden on the other side, and this is a Photoshop tweet, but the screenshot is from the video that we just played, and it was on that same day. So on the same day that he's tweeting out a call to prayer and unity, he's also making a speech about how the MAGA crowd is ultra MAGA, that there's some kind of crazy conspiracy group, and that we're basically 80 million Americans are part of a terror cell trying to take over America. No, when you have approximately half the country with a different political ideology, that's just called the party system. The Democrats are looking at China, and they very much like the one-party system. How does China treat other political parties that are not the CCP? Well, kind of like the way the Democrats are trying to treat the Republicans and the without a home conservatives at the moment. And that's really what this is leading to. That is what this Disinformation Governance Board is going to be leading to. This is an attempt for the Democrats to enshrine by law, or by rote, that the Democrat Party is the uniparty. It is the only party that is legal to support, to run for, to have policies about. All other parties will be verboten. This is how this starts.
You also can't, within the confines of the Constitution, of the First Amendment, you can't ban disinformation, or rather someone saying something that is incorrect, unless it meets certain criteria of causing harm. Because what part of the thing about the First Amendment is you're allowed to be wrong.
Yes, and again, that's misinformation versus disinformation. There's nothing. There's nothing. The Constitution would specifically protect the right to believe things that are maybe not true or maybe not found in evidence. A lot of the things that the Democrats say, oh, well, these are not true, the evidence that they point to just isn't related. It's not connected in any way, or they don't provide evidence. They just say the science is settled, or you're an idiot rube from middle America. They are just as wrong as we are. And again, this is a big difference between how the left and the right views each other. The right will typically look at the left and say, wow, you guys are pretty misinformed. You guys must not know your history. You must not know mathematics. You must not know economics. You must not know, the obvious social theories that existed prior to the 50s and how the world has worked for thousands of years. You must just be misinformed about that. You must just be wrong. And the left looks at us as though we are evil. That's the big difference.
Even beyond that, saying lies of malice are still protected under the First Amendment. For individuals like public figures and politicians, lying about them intentionally is still not a crime.
Well, it's First Amendment protected for Joe to lie about being a truck driver, to lie about having 48 tours in Iraq, to lie about being a professor at Pennsylvania University, to should I go on?
am I to assume from their statements here that this is the first 2 cycles of elections where politicians have lied to the people about each other?
Yes, Dyer. The MAGA crowd was the first to ever figure it out. It's our secret. It's our secret.
It's almost like
do you feel lied to?
Have been part of politics since the inception of politics.
Yes, but as stated at the beginning of the segment, it's okay when they do it because they're doing it for good reasons, Dyer.
Right.
It's only the good things, not the bad things. I'm for good things, not for bad things.
Like, see, I remember a time not so long ago where the consequence of lying to the American people was felt at the ballot box.
I do too, and we'll definitely get into that in a coming up segment about the ballot box. But first, the economy. Economy
stonks.
Not stonks, Dyer. Not stonks. Stonks was last year. Not stonks is this year. All right. Well, the economy is doing just great. It's amazing. Best numbers of our lives. Lowest unemployment in history. All of these are things that you might have said in 2019 under Trump. Under Biden, well, energy from the CPI, energy prices are up 48% since this time last year. Groceries are up 10% from this time last year. Markets are down. The NASDAQ is down 10% from this time last year. Even crypto is struggling. This is supposed to be like, just up and up and up forever, and it just isn't.
Yeah. But you have like a bunch of the Democrat representatives saying this is the best economy. This is the great economy. Biden's running a wonderful economy. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, maybe they had Twitter when Elon bought it. So basically, every key indicator right now in the economy is pointing towards recession. Not just like a little bit, but like a lot of recession. Like maybe into a depression. Well, if you think that all of these key indicators are correct, well, you're really just being irrational.
Look at. We certainly understand that in terms of consumer confidence, and I don't know what this small business data looked at, it may be that people see costs, they see the stock market. We understand that when you're measuring people's emotions or people's reaction, that's what that captures, but we're still looking at the basic fundamentals, as are many economists on the outside, including Jason Furman and others. Go ahead.
All right, bitch. Okay, so it's not about getting emotional about something increasing in price. It's about not being able to feed your fucking family, you fucking cunt. Anyway, so
he's just letting your emotions go unchecked.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah, I'm saying that with emotion because it is not. And you're trying to downplay that people are getting scared that they cannot feed their families. What happened to the unifier? He's going to show compassion and understand where the common man was coming from, right? So that's right.
I want you to remember that when we were talking about the abortion segment, because one of the scenarios brought up by the left constantly and by Elizabeth Warren specifically is, imagine the mother struggling to put food on the table who can't have one more kid or her finances are going to collapse. And well, why are her finances about to collapse? Well, maybe it's Democrat policy. So if you're struggling, Dyer, might I introduce you to abortion?
Oh, thanks. I'll make sure my daughters know that.
Yeah, you're like 80th trimester children.
Exactly. So that's right. When you see the prices of eggs have doubled in the last year, and you think to yourself, well, that's just not good. That's just you being emotional, you being in your emotional, and not keeping your emotions in check.
Probably had too much soy.
Yes. But don't worry, the establishment is not going to let this suffering go to waste. Not when it makes such great comedy material.
I think ever since you've come into office, things are really looking up. Gas is up, rent is up, food is up, everything. No, it really has been a tough first year for you, Mr. President. And
that's so fucking funny. I'm sure the people who've lost their jobs and those who still have their jobs but are getting paid less or not getting paid enough thanks to the comparison between how much things have gone up, I'm sure they think that's hilarious. They love the imagery of their president laughing at their expense.
He's wearing black tie and
yeah, this isn't something that sucks for Biden. And if you think this is something that, oh shucks, it's tough on Biden that all these people are suffering, you are twisted. No, the people who are should be pitied and who are those who are suffering right now. It's not the one this is bad for. It's not him. It's bad for all the people he's doing this to.
Well, yeah, Joe he's got an extra $5 million that was unaccounted for between when he left the office of the vice president and then took office as president. Somehow he just, Dyer, in the last 4 years, I know you make a lot of money here. Is it, did you happen to lose $5 million? You just don't know where it came from. Wow, where'd this come from? It's just like finding coins in your couch, right?
No, that didn't happen. Now I did, actually, contrary to what some people may believe, the military don't get paid very much. And I brought it up to through the chain of command. There was a big briefing, and they asked for questions, and I said, hey, so the local cost of living has gone up by this percentage, but our payment our pay hasn't gone up. Is there any hope that our pay will in any way increase in relation to the cost of living? And their response was a no, but if you want your cost of living, your housing to go to be adjusted, then you need to answer this survey that we do every year about cost of living, and they might pay up to 80% of it.
You guys really need to take a page out of the Spartan book. The Spartans did not take no for an answer when they wanted a raise. To the point of, they got their raises. The Senate was very scared of the Spartans not being paid well.
I just think it's insane to say that, okay, if you join up, we will give you money to live in the areas we force you to live in. But then when we get there, okay, so we meant we're going to force you to live here, but we're only going to pay 80% of it. What?
Also, you have to pay taxes.
Also pay taxes. So while all this is a real gas for them, it was real hilarious. I love when they laugh at our expense. They do at some point need to address the issue of the voting base.
On inflation,
to stay in power. If they want to stay in power, they need to address the major issues that are affecting their voting base. So what is their plan?
On inflation, has the White House analyzed at all how much student loan forgiveness would impact inflation?
I know there's been outside analysis of that, but I don't have any internal analysis at this point to preview.
So just always pleading ignorance. That's the plan, is we're going to cancel student loan debt. What's the effects of that going to be? I don't know. Jen Psaki is just... What a job. Dyer, you get asked a lot of questions from, even Congress people sometimes. Do you get to just say, I don't know, I didn't research that next question?
No, I can't say that.
She seems to do that an awful lot. I don't know if I can actually explain the gravity of the fact that we just created a new bureaucracy under the Department of Homeland Security called the Disinformation Governance Board. And when asked, do you know anything about the person running it, and do you know anything about what it's going to do, Jen Psaki's just like, I don't know. You want to cancel $1 trillion of student loan debt. Do you have any idea what the impact of that is going to be on the already failing economy? I don't know. They're just going to do it.
We just gave it an insane amount of power to a person, and then we have no idea who they are.
Yeah.
What? What?
Yeah. So, I thought these were supposed to be our betters, that they were, going to be so much smarter than us idiot rubes.
Boy, were you wrong.
Yeah, that, these were supposed to be the adults in the room. But no, as it turns out, like all of their plans, not a single thought has gone into them.
A return to normalcy.
Yes, exactly.
Decency back in the White House.
Yes.
I guess that's what they meant.
Must have been.
All right. Next story.
No, you have this next spot to read.
Oh, right, okay. And if you are not a teacher trying to groom kids or are government employees harassing the citizenry,
He's the president.
and you already paid your loans, well, go pound sand.
Is the president looking at any options for those students and parents who saved and sacrificed so that they wouldn't have to take out such massive loans? Is he looking at including them in relief retroactively? How would they be made whole if there was some sort of canceling of debt?
You mean for people who have paid off all of their student loans?
Who made sacrifices so that they wouldn't have to take out some of those loans?
It's a good question. What I can tell you at this point is that there's legislation he'd be happy to sign for individuals who have $10,000 in existing student debt. If Congress wanted to send that to him, he'd be happy to sign it, and he's looking at executive.
Did you see like the contempt in her face when she's like, you mean people who already paid off their loans? Like, you mean those idiots? Why would we do anything for those stupid assholes?
Yeah, jeez. It kind of seems like if you're going to give money to a bunch of people who are irresponsible and didn't pay back their loan, then, you know, the people who actually are responsible and pay back their loans, you know, it kind of feels like they are getting the short end of the stick here.
Yeah, it is because, you know, once you get done paying off your loans, well, what are you going to do? You're still paying taxes, so now you got to pay off everybody else's loans too. You know, and it does get kind of generalized. I find it interesting, right? So like we've talked about this before, right, Dyer, that a lot of conservative commentary, the commentators, that's what they do professionally, and they make a good amount of money out of it. A lot of them came from humble beginnings, but they are currently by no means in the middle class. And we've talked about, you know, our perspective being in the middle class, that when we're advocating for certain policies, like, we're affected by it just as much as it affects a lot of our viewers. Whereas, you know, Crowder, God love him, you know, Ben Shapiro, I love him a little bit less. But if they're advocating for certain policies or talking about certain things happening, they're really well insulated from any kind of policy that they're asking for. And so one of the things I hear a lot, especially from those wealthier commentators, is this overgeneralization of college degrees, you know, being kind of useless, and all of the, you know, the college loan class and all of that. And I think that that's getting a little bit overly generalized, because in my experience, as somebody who holds a substantial amount of college debt, but is perfectly able to pay it off, is that it seems like the group of people who can't pay it off are of a particular political persuasion. That conservatives who do end up going to college, there are some of us, we're not all blue collar workers, but we're not all super wealthy either. So there does seem to be an overgeneralization of that, where it seems like conservatives who have this mentality of merit and grit, and, you know, you got
useful degrees.
Yeah, you got to do something to get something, not just waiting around for handouts like a leftist. They're the ones who are getting college degrees, actually leveraging them for income, and then making enough income to actually pay them off. The types of people who have problems paying off their loans, they fall in a particular category of certain types of majors that have certain political persuasions, and it's very clearly a left-right divide. I've been noticing that more and more as I've been kind of looking into this. It does appear that there is a stark left-right divide between those who can pay off their loans and those who can't.
The biggest reason for that is because the type of degrees you're getting. So if you get a degree in women's studies or feminist dance theory, they will not get a job that allows them to pay off the loans, so they're just saddled with that debt. And I would say not they gained a skill, they probably got dumber, and maybe they're disabled, functionally retarded now, because they had being retarded pushed.
Yeah, I
into
mean
their brain.
they've been devolved into NPCs, right? So like they've been
to lobotomized.
Yeah, I more or less brainwashed, but at least programmed into just accepting the latest Democrat narrative. I mean, there's a lot of evidence that is what goes on at universities.
Well, if you are susceptible to it, we have a lot of conservatives that go to the universities. They just survive, but they definitely aren't going for those kinds of courses. They go for a course that will give them a skill they actually will result in a job afterwards.
I would push back on that. We have a lot of kids of conservatives who go to college and then become liberalized, but just because people's parents are conservative doesn't necessarily mean or is an indicator that they will be.
So, example, I went to college, but I didn't get liberalized, right?
Yes.
They exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that wasn't like you're like an independent person. I'm just saying, like, the idea that like somebody is conservative and then gets liberalized, I would guess that they weren't that conservative, that maybe they just identified as conservative prior just because that's what their parents said or something.
That's what I'm saying. There's some conservatives that go into college, and they're the ones that get the degrees that allow them to get a job, and that's why there's a divide. Is the ones that are so we have that one side of politics, or the conservatives who have college loans, but they're able to pay them off. And then they have the liberals who go through college, or people who become liberals in college, who are getting these useless degrees and are unmotivated to actually be successful people with any kind of productivity, and those are liberals.
Yeah. So what the administration is continuing to look at is limited loan relief for those who are in some kind of government position or in a certain category, which would typically mean teachers or social workers. That is what the current bid is for. So even someone like me, who I've been paying tens of thousands of dollars in income tax every year for the last 8 years after I graduated, because I got a good degree and I got a good job out of it, I will probably not be on that list. Not that I need it, but it would be, it seems a little bit wrong that I'm paying my loans, I'm paying taxes, and then those tax dollars are also getting to pay other people's loans. That's, I don't know. I mean, if I wanted that, I would have, I'd marry somebody who had student loan debt and pay for them.
Still an option.
It is. So yeah, so that's going to be pretty much a bunch of bullcrap here. You're going to see, so basically what's going to end up happening, Dyer, is I think you're going to be left, if they are able to go through with this, I think you're going to be left with a class of conservative, moderately successful millennials that are still saddled with an absurd amount of college debt, whereas you've got their more liberal, less successful counterparts are now suddenly going to be completely financially free. And then they, with their new financial freedom, not having to pay a couple $100 a month into their student loans, they're now going to be able to buy up assets and other things that now maybe I won't be able to get to because I don't have as much cash flow, because some of that cash flow is going into loans. And so maybe I want to go buy a bigger house or a car or something that, I want, that I've earned my money for. Well, no, I can't go get it because I just got outbid by some gender studies degree who spent, $200,000 on college and then didn't have to pay any of it back. And they just have completely free and open cash flow. So you're going to see a economic shift, not just from people who didn't go to college and the regular tax-paying base going into people who went to college and going into people who have student loans, but you're going to see it isolated only to leftist college students. This will be a way, this limited scope, which I probably should have seen this coming, but I didn't. And I was kind of surprised when I saw it happening that the Biden administration was talking about only doing certain categories of students. What you're now going to see is that's going to be used to target majors and occupations that are primarily held by leftists, so that the student loan relief will be targeted to only leftists, and as much as possible not diverted to conservatives in any way.
If you don't think they do this, they literally said they're going to give COVID release to just black people.
Yep.
And that was of course overruled by the courts, but come on, if they are the type of people who would do that.
Yep. So, that'd be great. I can't wait to also pay for their loans, because I'm not already paying for their policies, and I'll have to pay for their student loans. Okay, so we have our next story here is an interesting story that we considered not doing.
I think we're just going to read through what the source says.
Yeah, so this is a story from the AP, the Associated Press. What Dyer and I are going to read to you today is just what the AP said, and we're not going to comment on it at all. Okay, so from AP News, the FDA...
Not us, not Direwolf Media. We are not saying this. Yes. We're simply repeating it.
Direwolf Media does not endorse. The FDA, this is from the AP, quote, the FDA restricts J&J's COVID-19 vaccine due to blood clot risk.
Johnson and Johnson. Okay. That's not commentary.
That's not commentary. It's just a
making
hiccup.
funny noises.
Yep. It was Dyer's dog. All right. So, from the AP. Washington, AP, U.S. regulators on Thursday strictly limited who can receive the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine due to the ongoing risk of rare but serious blood clots.
So, the Food and Drug Administration said the shot should only be given to adults who cannot receive a different vaccine or specifically request the J&J vaccine. U.S. authorities for months have recommended that Americans started their COVID-19 vaccinations use the Pfizer or Moderna shots instead.
FDA officials said in a statement that they decided to restrict J&J's vaccine after taking another look at the data on the risk of life-threatening blood clots within 2 weeks of vaccination. Second look, huh?
Yeah, there's a second look at the data. So, J&J's vaccine... Sorry, that's yours.
Oh, yeah, sorry. J&J's vaccine was initially considered an important tool in fighting the pandemic because it required only one shot, but the single-dose option proved less effective than 2 doses of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines.
In December, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommended prioritizing Moderna and Pfizer shots over J&J because of its safety issues. J&J because they recommended prioritizing Moderna and Pfizer shots over J&J because of its safety issues, period. Previously, U.S. officials had treated all 3 vaccines similarly because they'd each been shown to offer strong protection. But follow-up studies have consistently shown lower effectiveness for the J&J vaccine. And while the blood clots seen with J&J's shots are rare, officials say they're still occurring.
Federal scientists have identified 60 cases, including 9 that were fatal as of mid-March. That amounts to 1 blood clot per 3.23 million J&J shots administered, the FDA said Thursday. The vaccine will carry a starker warning about potential, quote, long-term and debilitating health consequences of the side effect. Under the new FDA instructions, J&J vaccines could still be given to people who had severe allergic reactions to one of the other vaccines and can't receive an additional dose. J&J's shot could also be an option for people who refused to receive the mRNA vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna and therefore would otherwise remain unvaccinated, the agency said.
So, a J&J spokesman said in an email statement, quote, data continue to support a favorable benefit risk profile for the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine in adults when compared with no vaccine. Despite the restrictions of FDA vaccine chief Dr. Peter Marks said J&J's vaccine still, quote, has a role in the current pandemic response in the United States and across the global community.
The FDA based its decision on, quote, our safety surveillance systems and our commitment to ensuring that science and data guide our decisions, end quote. The clotting problems first came up last spring with the J&J shot in the U.S. and with a similar vaccine made by AstraZeneca that is used in other countries. At that time, U.S. regulators decided the benefits of J&J's one-and-done vaccine outweighed what was considered a very rare risk, as long as the recipients were warned. Huh.
Yeah. So COVID-19 causes deadly blood clots too, but the vaccine linked. Let me read that again. COVID-19 causes deadly blood clots too, but the vaccine linked kind is different, believed to form because of rogue immune reaction to the J&J and AstraZeneca vaccines because of how they're made. It forms in unusual places such as it forms in unusual places such as veins that drain blood from the brain, and in patients who also developed abnormal low levels of the platelets that clots. Help me. Symptoms of the unusual clots. Unusual clots include severe headaches a week or two after the J&J vaccine, not right away, as well as an abdominal pain and nausea.
The New Brunswick, New Jersey-based company announced last month that it didn't expect a profit from the vaccine this year and was suspending sales projections. The rollout of the company's vaccine was hurt by a series of troubles, including manufacturing problems at a Baltimore factory that forced J&J to import millions of doses from overseas.
Imported millions of doses from overseas. Additionally, regulators added warnings about the blood clots and a rare neurological reaction called
Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Thanks. Pfizer and Moderna have provided the vast majority of the COVID-19 vaccines in the U.S., and more than 200 million Americans have been fully vaccinated with the company's 2-dose shots, while less than 17 million Americans got the J&J shot. I want to point out that the fuck me was not in the article.
Well, that was interesting.
That was an interesting article, and we have nothing to say about that.
Yep, just interesting. Thank you, AP, for that.
Thank you.
Interesting thing that you wrote.
Yes,
Those
are all of your opinions and not ours.
Exactly. Our only opinion is that science. All right.
Science. I believe in the science. Fox, do you believe in the science?
I am very proud of you for maintaining
I did not read the article clearly.
Oh, I mean, yeah, no, but we're not going to respond to any of that because we can't. I think that the work of the fine journalists at the AP speaks for ourselves.
I agree.
Alrighty. Our next story is Mollog v. Wade. Well, as you may have heard this week, the Supreme Court is set to overturn Roe v. Wade. The revelation was revealed. Well, I'm great at writing, aren't I? The revelation was revealed in a leaked draft of Justice Alito's majority opinion. The 90-plus page document outlines what is believed to be the opinion that will be issued later this summer. The documents have been authenticated, although the justices warn that the draft is not final. The Democrats, for their part, responded with calm stoicism.
I am angry. Angry and upset, and the United States Congress can keep Roe versus Wade the law of the land. They just need to do it.
I've never seen you so angry. You seem to be...
This is what the Republicans have been working toward this day for decades. They have been out there plotting, carefully cultivating these Supreme Court justices so they could have a majority on the bench who would accomplish something that the majority of Americans do not want. 69% of people across this country, red states and blue states, old people and young people, want Roe versus Wade to maintain.
We don't want to dismember children in the womb, ma'am. We're not going to stand for dismembering 3,000 children in the womb every single day. And anybody, I don't care what type of leader you are,
you know, it kind of makes you wonder what all of her rage is about. Now, I'm not saying that
too much firewater, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, you know, all of our improbably old politicians. America has very old politicians at the helm. Some of them are improbably old, much older than the average life expectancy. Now, I'm not saying that all of these improbably old politicians are making child sacrifices to Moloch in exchange for extended life. I'm just saying that in the wake of overturning Roe v. Wade, I won't be surprised if over the course of the next few years, time seems to catch up to them.
It's kind of like when the witch who was absorbing people's souls to stay young has the spell break, just ages to dust immediately.
Something like that. Maybe like looking at Medusa.
Yeah, something like that. So you joke, but there is a real billion-dollar industry that has been built up around the abortion industry. And I'm not even talking about the lucrative business of state-funded abortion clinics and federally mandated insurance that covers abortions, which was a big part of Obamacare, by the way. So, no, I'm talking about the well-documented sale of aborted babies, both fully intact, near full-term babies and baby organs of those babies that are collected and transported and sold for the purpose of stem cell research and stem cell treatments.
And as we learned a few weeks ago, to create electricity.
Oh, yes, also creating electricity. Thanks for reminding me of that horrible story.
The most sustainable form of energy is babies.
But the reason why that exists is because this is Roe v. Wade has been around for 50 years, and they've had this time to build up this industry where people are profiting from encouraging people to get abortions in mass. So just as one example, stem cells from aborted babies are being used in the production of expensive cosmetics, cosmetics that also coincidentally don't work. Because that's not how stem cells work. But
wait. Are you saying, God damn it, they lied to me again? Explains so much.
So, have you been smearing dead baby paste all over your face, hoping you get younger?
I don't have to answer that. We have a Fifth Amendment in this country for a reason, and that reason is so that I don't have to answer questions about if I smeared dead babies on my face.
So you definitely did. So anyways, moving on.
You work for the government. You have to presume my innocence.
I'm a mandatory reporter, actually. So.
Damn it. Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, you go ahead and mandatory report that and see which one of us gets in trouble.
Yeah, right. I think I will just not. I'll pretend I didn't hear that one. So the worst part of it is that I say that kind of flippantly because there's a lot of worst parts here. But the worst part of it, the stem cells don't even need to come from dead babies. I can repeat that because I need to foot stomp this, but not literally. Stem cells don't need to come from aborted babies. They are choosing to do it, and the stem cells are coming from the dead babies' spines, livers, brains. These are, and on the other cells, not just stem cells. They're harder to extract than the stem cells you get from the placenta, and it costs thousands of dollars and very, very expensive equipment just to get a small vial of the material cells that they are trying to collect. It's cheaper and easier to do it by not killing babies, but they're just really into the killing babies parts of it. So they want to do it by getting it from the dead babies. And they also have successfully, it's not just been done once or twice, but they've done this a lot. They're producing a lot of artificial, and I use that the real stem cells, but they're stem cells produced from adult cells. They've done this in the lab many times. They're producing them for research. They've also are capable of using cells that were collected to produce more cells. So they don't need to kill babies. That's the worst part of all this in my mind, to get stem cells. And stem cells can be, there is promising research about how stem cells can be used to cure a lot of different illnesses. And people use that as a justification for why we have to kill babies, because we want to cure lupus or something, right? Or ALS.
Yeah. I mean, how else are we going to keep all these politicians alive if we're not, smearing dead babies in their face and putting their organs in them?
Smooth and supple skin, so please kill the babies, right? But you don't need to, and also it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, have you looked in a mirror, Dyer? Clearly, it does not work like that.
Yeah, so whereas abortion started out as a quote-unquote wholesome eugenics project,
it's now turned into the less wholesome cosmetic industry.
Now it's been twisted in a way we could not have possibly seen, where now there's this large financial interest built around the continuation of abortion, and that we're fighting against those interests who are pouring a lot of money into trying to maintain their paycheck.
Could you imagine what would happen to you, Dyer, if you got like the tiniest amount of dead baby on your hand, because you work really hard to keep your calluses up, and it would just immediately turn your hands into these like super soft soy boy hands?
So I get mocked about the fact that I keep my hands the way they are, don't ever use lotion. But dude, if you're working with like metal instruments and you have smooth hands, you cut your hands and then you bleed. I'm not crazy. Calluses are good.
Dyer can stop a table saw with his finger. Alrighty. Well, yeah. So yeah, again, now it's as it started off with abortion being wholesome eugenics. It is now.
I wrote that.
It is now motivated by money and cosmetics.
Lives matter, or just some black lives? The black lives killed by black men matter, right? Yes? The black babies killed in the abortion clinics matter, right? Thought so. The black officers killed by that bastard in Minnesota, that matters too, right? Okay. But the black babies that are killed in the abortion clinics don't matter, do they? Medical people. Do their lives matter? Does the future of our black babies matter? Huh? What's up? What's up? Awful quiet now, aren't they? Uh-huh. It's okay if we kill them in the womb, right? You have a problem when you don't seem to really have a problem when we kill them on the streets. Yes, well, we know they're the same issue. If we don't respect the lives of our unborn children enough to save them and fight for them, our lives mean nothing once we're born. Lives matter, or just some.
Nice.
So, yep. And as the stats bear out, I think it's in New York City, over 50% of black conceptions end in abortion. And I think nationally, the abortion rate is approximately 50% African American, even though they make up only 13% of the population. So, pretty wild. We can see why the Democrats are so upset about this. You kind of combine this in with the story that it would appear that black Americans are starting to shift more conservative, and they really have every reason to shift conservative. There's really just everything about their family culture and structure would point towards conservatism. And they're starting to realize that. And so maybe this is part of the Democrat strategy to, perhaps suffocate that one in the cradle, literally, so that, they can't continue to increase their population that would potentially vote conservative.
The bill that they're pushing in Congress to solidify Roe v. Wade is actually a law, not a really bad interpretation of the law. Actually would include abortion all the way up to birth.
I cannot remember which state it was. Maybe somebody in chat remembers. But there was recently a state that was attempting to... But they were trying to pass a abortion ban And one of the Democrat state senators stepped up and tried to add an amendment that would allow for an exception for black babies. That basically in the state only abortion would be completely illegal except for black babies. That they could be aborted only, exclusively.
What?
Oh, were you thinking of something else?
Yes, that was not what I was thinking of. And holy shit!
Yeah,
Hey,
I just remembered that, but I probably should have found that for the.
It's okay if you take away abortion as long as we get to keep killing black kids, is what they're saying.
Yes.
Damn, that is. I mean, it was already evil. Like this is another flavor of evil, I guess.
Yep. So while your average leftist on the street is going to tell you that these fetuses are just clumps of cells. Actually, funny story about the word fetus. Do you know what the word fetus means, Dyer?
Actually, no. What do you mean?
It's the Latin word for baby. So when they say it's not a baby, it's a fetus. I mean, I don't know what the word baby is in Spanish, but it'd just be like saying the word baby in a different language. I mean, like there's no word in Latin for like what
it's really funny you said baby in Spanish because it's still baby.
Oh, is it? Yes. It's not a baby, it's a baby. It's a baby-o, right?
That's funny.
So that's actually what the word fetus comes from. It's Latin for baby. Yeah, so that's an interesting one for you, right? So basically, I mean, you got babies in the womb, and then when they're delivered, they're a fetus. If you want to teach it Latin.
Oh man.
So the average leftist on the street will tell you that it's just a clump of cells, right? That's like the common argument, right? So the representatives, though, that these average leftists on the street that they send to positions of power, they're not mincing words in the way that the foot soldiers are. When the representatives talk about abortion, they don't talk about clumps of cells. Here is Joe Biden not beating around the bush as to what abortion is.
I mean, so the idea that we're going to make a judgment that is going to say that no one can make the judgment to choose to abort a child based on a decision by the Supreme Court, I think goes way overboard.
Abort a what?
Abort a baby, he said. Biden actually used to be opposed to abortion. I don't even need to look that up because he's taken both sides of every debate. But actually, I did look it up, and he was opposed to abortion at one point, and now he's for it. Wonder what changed.
Looks like Triumvirate helped me find that. It looks like it was Ohio that did this. Let's see here. So this is from Snopes. Thank you, Triumvirate. So did an Ohio... What is with the... My God, Snopes. Okay, apparently I can't read this. Let me try this on another... All these goddamn frickin' pop-ups. Okay, so did an Ohio state representative propose exempting African-American women from abortion restrictions? Let's see here. So it's true. So in Ohio, there was an attempt to create an abortion ban, a full abortion ban, and one of the Democrat state reps stood up and said, everybody except blacks. We would like to still be able to kill blacks because, racism, I guess. Maybe these are... I don't know what Joe Biden's reminiscing about the... back in the day, these segregationists. I mean, they're still pretty much around. I guess they're now eugenicists, right?
So the racist Democrats of old are still the same racist Democrats of now. They just got better at marketing it.
So with this picture on the screen, Dyer, would this imply to you that there are 2 Ohio state representatives deployed right now? Is that what that means? Because those are typically... That's like your family stars, isn't it? On the front of the building?
I don't know. Sorry, it's really small for me.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, so they're saying they have 2 of them deployed because of 2 stars in the front?
I would guess. Well, isn't that like normally like what a family would put in their window?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
I don't know then. Well, Ohio's a goofy state. They have a weird shaped flag. It's special.
Yes.
Okay. So, abortion for everybody, except for not blacks. Abortion for nobody. Except for blacks.
That's what's important.
Yeah.
Please don't take away our ability to kill black babies and then sell their bodies for stem cell research and also to generate power.
That's pretty wild. Okay.
By the
so
way, that was satirical. I'm not saying I want that.
Yeah. So as you heard, Joe Biden, he's not mincing words with clump of cells or fetus. He is just speaking in plain language, plain English even. Some of the plainest English he's ever spoken.
Yeah, he was clear.
It's a child that the women should have the right to abort their child. Not even a baby or a fetus, just a child. That's pretty open-ended.
Yeah, like what age are we talking? By the way, I think it's funny because the whole clump of cells argument. Fucking Fox, you are a clump of cells.
I am a clump of cells.
Like everyone is a clump of cells.
Yes. If you want to be like reductive about stuff, yes. Let's see here. So, so Democrats admitting that abortion is killing a child is nothing new. Here is former Virginia Governor Democrat Ralph Northam, describing how he would perform an abortion in his clinic because he's a doctor.
So in this particular example, if a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So I think this was really blown out of proportion.
Yep, totally blown out of proportion. Just wildly blowing proportions. So this is exactly what the Democrats are fighting for. Again, their people on the street will try to have these quote-unquote clever arguments about clumps of cells, but the representatives that they send to D.C., they know what it is that they're fighting for, and they're fighting to kill people. Kill babies, kill children. But you guys already knew that. This isn't anything new, and I don't want this to be a segment on abortion in general, because we already know which side everybody's on that. We know the arguments. That's not the interesting part of this story. The interesting part of the story this week is that the way that we found out about it is that this draft decision was leaked from the Supreme Court and published by Politico. This is completely unprecedented. While the legislative and executive branches have leaks every day as a rule, I think it's almost just an SOP at this point. The judicial branch, the Supreme Court, has never had such a scandal, never had leaks. The number of people that could possibly have leaked this document is very limited. It's in the dozens. So as of right now, it is widely believed that a clerk for one of the left-wing judges, likely Sonia Sotomayor, who is known to hire radical clerks, it is believed that one of them leaked the document. There is a minority theory that it was perhaps a conservative that leaked it. Either way, the Supreme Court and Justice... who's the head justice right now?
Alito?
No, it's not Alito. He wrote
Nazi
the opinion.
fags. How dare
That's right, Nazi fags.
Why would you do that?
I don't know why the Democrats are so upset about the Supreme Court decision. They're just aborting a clump of words.
Exactly. Thank you, Triumvirate, for that. Well put. Oh, man. Right in the mic.
Always. Best comments.
Yeah. That's so great. Triumvirate, I choked. Thank you. Yeah, so I don't know where I was at. Go for it, Dyer.
Okay, so for the entire Joe administration, the media and Democrats have claimed that Joe represents a return to decorum and standards that the Trump era had done away with. So when asked about the unprecedented non-standard event of leaking a Supreme Court document, the White House had this to say.
You were asked about the leak itself, and given the historic nature of the leak, which was so unprecedented, as you acknowledged, you said, I don't think we have a particular view on that other than to say that we certainly note the historic, or unprecedented, nature of it. Why wouldn't the White House condemn this leak? Are there any concerns? Do you have concerns about the sort of further politicization of one of the branches of government?
Have you ever reported anything that's been leaked to you?
I am, and you guys have criticized leaks before as it's been provided. So you've criticized in the past. Why not criticize this leak?
Again, because I think what is happening here, and what we think is happening here, is there is an effort to distract from what the actual issue here, which is the fundamental rights. I don't think they're at the same level. We don't think they're at the same
So
level.
they're not at the same level, but would you agree that it's still worthy of condemnation?
Well, look, I think there has been a call for an investigation by leaders of the Supreme Court. Decisions on that and how it will be pursued will be made by the Department of Justice and others. And that's certainly their space and right to make that decision in government. That's how government is set up. But at the same time, what we've also seen, Peter, is many Republicans who are trying to overturn a woman's fundamental rights try to make this about the leak. This is not about the leak. This is about women's health care and women having access to health care and making choices with their doctors. And we are working not to allow that to be the distraction.
Yeah, it's a little bit about the leak.
I think that she should have an opinion on it, because leaking that decision, that draft decision, is a crime, as is everyone protesting at the homes of justices or threatening to do so, because there is a distinct difference between a leak from the Biden administration to the media, which is in no way going to be intimidating a court, a jury, or a judge on a decision, and the intentional intimidation to change the opinions of judges and jurors on a legal case. That's what this is. This is a legal case that's being reviewed by judges who are acting as jurors on to find the decision on how they will find justice in this case. So is like any other court case where you have if you have someone pestering, harassing, or going after jurors or a judge, even protesting at their homes, following their vehicles, asking them questions, just asking someone questions because and trying to get information about them because they're a juror, that is considered a crime. So the administration should have an opinion on whether or not people who support them are committing crimes to subvert justice. And it's kind of funny because they sure as hell had a lot of opinions about Jan 6 where they said that was an obstruction of justice, right? So they should have an opinion about this.
Yes, I agree. Let's see here. So, when pressed about how the White House feels about doxing these Supreme Court justices, as Dyer was talking about, Jen Psaki had this to say. Spoiler alert, it's not much.
These activists posted a map with the home addresses of the Supreme Court justices. Is that the kind of thing this president wants to help your side make their point?
Look, I think the president's view is that there's a lot of passion, a lot of fear, a lot of sadness from many, many people across this country about what they saw in that leaked document. We obviously want people's privacy to be respected. We want people to protest peacefully if they want to protest. That is certainly what the president's view would be.
So he doesn't care if they're protesting outside the Supreme Court or outside someone's private residence?
I don't have an official U.S. government position on where people protest. We want it, of course, to be peaceful.
Yep. So, there's no official position on where you protest at. Well, I can't be ironic or sarcastic in saying anything about that, but if for instance somebody were to try doing something like that at somebody else's house, and maybe they had a D next to their name, I bet you Jen Psaki would have an opinion on it. So why do this? Why have protests outside of a Supreme Court justice's house? Well, the White House, they had this to say about it.
You guys spent some time yesterday talking about what you think are the extreme wings of the Republican Party. Do you think the progressive activists that are now planning protests outside some of the justices' houses are extreme?
Peaceful protest? No, peaceful protest is not extreme.
Some of these justices have young kids. Their neighbors are not all public figures. So would the president think about waving off activists that want to go into residential neighborhoods in Virginia and Maryland?
Peter, look, I think our view here is that peaceful protest, there's a long history in the United States and the country of that. And we certainly encourage people to keep it peaceful and not resort to any level of violence.
So basically, the White House endorses the idea of going to a Supreme Court justice's house and causing a ruckus in their yard. And there's really no confusion on our side at least, as to why the left isn't condemning this and why they want to do it in the first place. Here is an archive of the website Ruth sent us, who is a newer Twitter account, and it seems to be one of the spearheads in organizing protest events at Supreme Court justices' houses. And you can see here on their website, they say, talk about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and they talk about what it is that they're activisting for and their methods for doing it. And you can see here our 6-3 extremist Supreme Court routinely issues rulings that hurt women, racial minorities, LGBTQ+, and immigrant rights. We must rise up to force accountability using a diversity of tactics. A diversity of tactics, in case you're wondering what the definition of that is, I point you to the George Floyd riots. That was considered a diversity of tactics on the left.
Yes, when you have some people who aren't being violent, then you can say, well, it was a peaceful protest. Yeah, only some people were being violent. They were using diverse tactics, where some were the cover that were not being violent and just supporting those who were violent, and some were being violent with the cover of those who were not being violent.
Yep. Let's see here. So you also had a lot of interesting, spicy takes on Twitter. One that got a lot of traction this week was from Simon Gwen, who is supposedly a journalist. He tweeted this out. Let me try and recenter this for you. Interesting real-life trolley problem in America right now. If you had the chance to kill Clarence Thomas or Samuel Alito, the two oldest right-wing Supreme Court judges, should you do it while Biden can get his nominees to replace them? And then he had a follow-up. It's interesting as an abstract question, but it becomes a real conundrum if, say, you're terminally ill and have little to lose yourself, but know that it could save many women's lives in the future.
Jeez Louise.
So this guy is quite literally and very specifically calling for somebody who is terminally ill to say, well, you know what, my life's kind of over anyways. The best I could do with it is kind of a suicide run at one of the Supreme Court justices. That is
what a coward to say other people should sacrifice their lives for his goals, but he won't do it.
Yeah,
right?
You know what? Yeah, do it yourself. If you are so interested in the trolley problem, why don't you think about it yourself?
Don't do it at all. Let's just not do it at all. But you're also a coward for saying you want someone else to do it.
Look at this guy. Do you think he could actually pull that off? Okay, so yeah, so that's the kind of rhetoric. Again, the MAGA crowd's the most extreme group here. Definitely not anybody on the left wing.
Right.
Yeah. So, as crazy as the Democrats are about abortion, they are even crazier about what they seem to think that it means for their electoral standings.
Given that the conservative court majority is likely to be around for a while, do Democrats need to look more seriously at court expansion?
Look, the bottom line is our first step is to have the vote that we're going to have next week. And the bottom line is that we're going to look to these elections in November, and I think the American people are going to speak loudly and clearly that we need some change.
Yeah, so Schumer...
I think you might be right.
Yeah, Schumer hitting the pipe again there. He thinks that this is going to help the Democrats in November. Okay.
I think that it's definitely going to drive people to the polls, but not for what he thinks.
Yeah, here is Democrat Majority Whip Dick Durbin taking the same stance.
The election in this November is going to be a referendum on privacy and your rights to freedom as an American. They don't want to make that the case. They want it to be, it's inflation. It's something at the border. No.
Something at the border, huh?
Yeah.
It's just something at the border.
Yeah,
definitely not violent criminals going around and killing Americans.
I'm not even sure what he's talking about. Is there a thing going on at the border?
Someone did something, you know?
Some people did something.
Right. So I think that the demographics of parents who are trying to protect their kids from being groomed at school and basically everyone else, and and put food on their table are a lot more motivated than the choice crowd. And a reminder here that the overturning of Roe v. Wade does not suddenly ban abortion everywhere. It merely kicks it back to the states to decide, which is where it belongs. I think if you want the people who are representing you closer to you to be the ones determining these kinds of things and how they'll affect your lives.
Yep. Direwolf Media would also like to take a moment to remember the pro-life hero, Ruth Ginsburg.
Yep.
It was her who made sure to save her seat for Trump. She could have given it to Obama. She could have retired under Obama and let the Democrats keep her seat, a leftist seat. But she knew that if she could just hang on a little bit longer, she could give Trump the honor of replacing her.
What a true hero.
The word on the street is she wanted nothing more than to give Trump the honor of replacing her seat. So let's always remember the pro-life hero that Ginsburg was. It's Ruth that made all of this possible. Thank you, Ruth.
The great conservative leader and pro-life hero.
Maybe the goat. Perhaps the goat.
Yeah, possibly. You know, there's a funny thing about Airman Snuffy.
Excuse me?
Airman Snuffy. So there is a medal for heroism that went to an Airman Snuffy. And what Airman Snuffy did was he was in a plane that got hit by flak that set off a flare canister, and the plane was going to burn down while flying, explode basically. Yeah. And he used his body to push the burning flare outside of the plane. He obviously died from his injuries, but he got a medal. I forgot which medal, whether it was a Medal of Honor or something else, posthumously. But he is praised as being a hero, but his service record shows he was a complete failure in every possible way up to that one moment. But you were remembered for the one event that was heroic in your life.
You're remembered for your greatest act, whether it's a great act or a horrific act. You will be remembered for the greatest one.
He was a complete dirtbag, but he's also a hero.
Yeah. I mean, if only he had more calluses like you, Dyer. I bet you could slap a flare out of a plane and it wouldn't hurt you one bit. You'd probably hurt the flare. Probably put it out.
Exactly.
Dyer's hands are so callous, he can put it out just by snuffing it on his palm.
My hands are so callous, they're almost as callous as my heart.
So Snuffy, that's like I don't know, it seems like an ironic name for somebody who like died in a fire that they couldn't snuff out. I don't know.
It's funny, but it's real. Look it up.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting like that AP article. I won't comment on it further.
Yep.
Alrighty. Well, so again, most important takeaway is thank you, Ruth, and make sure all of your leftist friends know that Ruth is the hero that let this happen because she was a selfish twat who wanted to hang on to power to give it to Hillary because she believed her own farts that Hillary was going to beat Trump. And we went over this at the time that she died, and my standing now is the same as it was then. She's a selfish twat. But you need to let all your leftist friends know that without her, this wouldn't be possible.
Clinging to life out of spite.
Yeah, we praise her for that, yeah. So selfish that she let one of the highest positions in our country just be run by the interns for like 4 years. She was a horrifically selfish bitch her whole life. And her decisions and rhetoric back all that up. Alrighty. So our next story is Ukraine.
The
Ukraine. I don't know. Is that a Ukrainian accent?
No, it's definitely not. It was kind of racist, actually.
I don't know what Ukrainians sound like.
You knew,
sound like probably a lot of screaming and
to atone for your racism, you need to do 4 Bloody Marys.
Excuse me.
Moving on.
Anyways. So the biggest update on Ukraine or this week was, as you heard it from Biden himself, apparently we armed Russia, which I'll roll back here to that clip and find that clip here real quick. But yeah, apparently we armed.
Yeah, that's shocking. I thought we were all in it for Ukraine, but apparently we armed Russia. So
before Russia attacked, We made sure Russia had javelins and other weapons to strengthen the defenses so Ukraine was ready.
Some people just like to watch the world burn, Dyer.
We are on both sides. Just those fuck people, right?
Yeah, basically. What was that movie with Nicolas Cage that was like, he was like the arms dealer? I can't remember what it was, but it was kind of like that. He just like sold weapons to both sides.
Yeah, I remember what it was called.
Yeah, so let's see here. So yeah, apparently we armed Russia, which is almost as big a revelation as the fact that the state of Delaware just never existed. Let's see here. It's also possible that Biden got a bit confused because what Dyer said about the U.S. and NATO being directly involved in the Ukraine was actually confirmed earlier this week. Yes, that's right. Direwolf Media called it ahead of time that we were a lot more involved than what we were supposed to be. The Examiner and MSNBC News, among many other outlets, reported this week that it was confirmed that U.S. intelligence guided the missile strikes by Ukrainian forces that sank the Russian flagship, the Moskva.
Yes.
So, it's funny, Dyer. I hear things like this, and like I don't think much of it. Like I didn't think much of hearing the Politico story about the Supreme Court document leaking because I'd been hearing so much already that like that was kind of like what was the plan, is that this was the decision. We just had to wait a few months, and so when I heard that something got leaked, I had a hard time parsing it out from like what we already kind of knew with like what was like supposedly new information. And when I heard this about Ukraine, that it was revealed that NATO and the US were helping the Ukrainians, like that was like not really, I didn't like think it was novel news because I was under the impression already that the US was providing intelligence support, which intelligence support from the US basically means the ability to do pinpoint precision strikes. So a lot of this information was just like very obvious, but all of a sudden it gets officialized. It's like the Hunter Biden laptop, right? Like all of a sudden after like 3 years, the Hunter Biden laptop suddenly gets the stamp of approval from the New York Times, and now it's real news. And I get so confused as to like which thing is like news versus like real news, and like where on the continuum of news is it at? So I was a little confused at the story, so I'm glad we're covering it, that this is like in fact new news, that it's been confirmed, I guess, by the people who are allowed to confirm things, which are apparently not us, yes, the U.S. and NATO were in fact providing material support, which intelligence, especially intelligence for aiming your missiles, is very material in supporting a war effort.
So it's because when I said that, it was not classified information, and still isn't, because we knew what it meant when the government officials used official language that is not specific, but we know what it means. Like when they say that they're using our intelligence and our radar assets to deconflict with Ukraine and provide intelligence to Ukraine, that we know that means that we are providing them information about enemy movements, specific enemy movements. Well, they didn't say it. They said they're providing intel support. They're providing deconfliction of naval ships in the Black Sea. Well, deconflicting means we're identifying which ships are allied and which ones are enemy, which means we're telling you locations of enemy ships. We knew what that meant, and thus we reported on
for instance, to put this in terms that are a little bit more, I guess, concrete, like we do this with Israel in the Middle Eastern theaters all the time, where one or the other will provide all of the intel support and the other will provide the actual shooting at stuff. Sometimes it's them, sometimes it's us, but we are known to be allies in those conflicts, and there's no confusion as to that it is both of us coming after you, even if it's only U.S. hardware hitting the ground, but it was I lost
Israeli.
Yeah, Israeli some intel support helping us. It's not like, the Israelis are not involved, they only provided intel support. Like, no. It's known that it was a joint strike operation, that we did this together. And so in Ukraine, they want to do the same thing, but we don't want to label it, right? We're just experimenting. This isn't official or anything like that.
Right.
We're just exploring options.
the thin veil of secrecy that was fooling no one, apparently, except for, I guess, some of these news outlets.
Oh yeah, the Washington Examiner and MSNBC, they were fooled. They were like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Yeah, they were definitely fooled on that.
Yeah. So this story is just a specific example of what we already knew they were doing, and what we could obviously have already assumed. We reported it as that they had intel that allows them for the strike to happen, because they had no ability to make that kind of strike on their own without our help. So there's also been a second Russian ship, not a flagship, but another ship that was recently. It was called the Admiral Makarov.
Well, do we know it wasn't a flagship, because Russia's been losing assets so fast? I don't know. I mean,
it might have been promoted.
Yeah, just like any like 3-person dinghy could become their flagship at any moment. They're probably having to rotate that flag rather frequently.
So this one was also recently reported, but it was reported by a Ukrainian source. However, it would be an odd thing to lie about because it can be immediately disproven.
Maybe Nina Jankovic was involved with that.
So this is either a very brazen and funny lie to troll the Russians, or they did land another missile strike on another Russian boat in the same location as the previous one that got shot. so there's that. Why would you go to the same place again?
Well, I mean, because who would suspect? Like, I mean, who would think that lightning would strike twice, Dyer?
See, with lightning, there's a reason why it wouldn't likely strike the same exact location. But with missiles being fired by, there's a good chance it will land exactly.
I bet those silly Americans won't fall for it a third time.
They will continue to give intelligence. They can only do it once. They use that card already. It's like Risk.
Yeah, it's like Battleship. Like you already fired at that square, so like, you know, it's dead for the rest of the game. Why would you fire at it again?
Right. In fact, this ship can't have sunk because you can't sink two ships in the same spot. This doesn't make sense. Come on, be reasonable.
It's basic quantum physics.
Exactly. So there's also been a rash of Russian factories, including ones that produce food and ammunition, that have caught fire recently in the last few months.
So just like worldwide, for some reason, like food factories are just bursting into flames.
Huh. Weird. Are they overheating because they're at max capacity?
Maybe.
they're like a machine that's working on overdrive. Or possibly sabotage or cyber attacks. There's definitely some feelings in Russia that we might be behind trying to cripple their economy, because we're actively trying to cripple their economy in every other way.
Know what? Okay, here's a conspiracy theory for you. So are you familiar with Stuxnet?
Yeah.
So Stuxnet is what is widely believed to have been developed by joint Israeli and U.S. forces in the early 2010s, and it was a revolutionary virus that was able to hack industrial equipment, which traditionally was seen as unhackable because it was too basic and it wasn't a complex enough platform to support any kind of virus operation. Well, we figured out a way to do that, and that was called Stuxnet. And once it was out on the net, other hackers were able to copy the critical parts of the code that were able to infiltrate industrial devices, and all of a sudden you saw a bunch of similar copycat viruses that used the same exploitation factor. And so what you might be seeing, and some of that stuff got turned back on us. It's widely believed some of that stuff got turned back onto the U.S. by other foreign actors. So maybe what you were seeing, Dyer, is that perhaps the U.S. or some other actor came up with another industrial virus that targeted things at food plants. And perhaps the Russians got a hold of the source code on that, and they just reflected it right back at us. Maybe that's what we're seeing.
So it doesn't really matter whether we did a cyber attack on these Russian factories or not. It could also just be the fact that there is a lot of Russians who don't support the war and that have become informed about what Russia's actually doing, and there have been protests and violent protests at that. That Russia's, Putin's crushing those protests. There are people in Russia who disapprove of what Putin's doing, and it could simply be a Russian trying to hurt the Russian government because of the war. It could be us. It could be them. There could be a lot of reasons. The point is that Putin blames us for doing those things. And also, Putin Week this week said that Russia is not at war with Ukraine. I wonder if the Ukrainians know that. But Russia is at war with NATO.
Wait a second. That's us.
Wait. He's at war with us. Oh no. So the reason why he says that he's at war with NATO and the US is because, I don't know, is it possibly because there's an entire battalion of foreign fighters from NATO fighting on the ground in Ukraine?
Reddit.
Including a American journalist, quote unquote journalist.
Oh yeah. Do you think he figured out what caliber of cruise missile that was yet?
I'm sure he's still trying to find that out in the green zone. He's still searching to this day. And then you have all the weapons being used to kill Russians are coming from NATO countries and America. We are providing them training
because we have such a surplus of military equipment after we left $96 billion of it behind the Taliban.
Yeah, even though we quote unquote don't have troops on the ground, these Ukrainian soldiers are getting training and weapons from somebody. And Putin thinks it's us. I'll say that.
Yeah, and to further I guess, prove that the U.S. is not involved in this in any way, because, we definitely wouldn't want to get into a hot war with Russia. To prove that the U.S. is not involved, this week Joe Biden requested $33 billion to aid Ukraine. That would be in addition to the $13 billion he got a few weeks ago.
This is...
The Democrats, in the bill, the Democrats want to link $10 billion in COVID relief funds to the Ukrainian. You know what? I don't have a problem with that. If they want to link that COVID to the Ukrainian aid, I don't want either. Let's kill both of them off, please.
Well, that's why the bill hasn't gone through, because the Republicans are all in on sending $33 billion to Ukraine, but they are like, let's not send $10 billion to COVID relief, which is going to go to Democrat cities and states who are still locking down to some degree.
What if we fixed the roads and built a wall? Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Go on.
As Dyer said, the Republicans aren't voting on it, not because they aren't just drooling over the idea of getting into a hot war with Russia. They would definitely love to send $33 billion of your dollars to Ukraine. But they don't want another $10 billion in dollars that might go to you. By God, the horror, the humanity. We can't have that. That'd be terrible. And the Republicans said that they would. They don't want to vote on additional COVID relief until Title 42. A decision is made on Title 42, which will be our story here in a minute. Let's see here. So $500 million of the $33 billion will go to support domestic food production, which is far more of a U.S. problem than it is a Ukrainian problem. And also, what is the other $32.5 billion going to? I thought people were hungry.
Yeah. So no, that's a 500 separate million. That's separate from the 33 billion. But my problem with that is we're giving 33 billion to support Ukraine in their time of need, but we're only giving, in comparison, 500 million to our domestic food production, which we have a huge problem. And they're worried that we're not going to have enough food to feed people because our domestic production has been slowed down and hampered, and we have empty shelves. But that problem is far more important to Americans than Ukraine. But the disparity, how much we're spending on each issue, when it should be zero for Ukraine, and a lot more money on trying to fix the mistakes that they caused.
Yes.
Right?
Okay, so I guess that 500 million is extra. So what is the 33 billion doing? Apparently, what are we doing there in general? So we're going to send them money. We're apparently training them. We're apparently giving them weapons. How long and for what purpose are we going to do that? Well, apparently the victory conditions and our level of involvement is going to be entirely determined by the Ukrainian government, not by our own. Here's Jen Psaki explaining.
Against the backdrop of the president's announcement today and request for this $33 billion aid package, can you say, is it the policy goal of the United States for Ukraine to defeat Russia?
Well, look, it depends on how you. We're not going to define that from here. That's for the Ukraine. Well, that's for the Ukrainians to define.
Yeah, we're not going to define our victory conditions, which is apparently America's foreign policy for the last several decades of war. You know, we'll just send you over there till you can't come back, Dyer. How about that? We'll just leave you over there, and you know,
can I at least have a plan?
well, no. Well, I mean, wait a second. Does that plan involve spending lots and lots of money that we don't have with the military-industrial complex?
I'd rather it not.
Well, then no. God, you're so selfish, Dyer. You're just like, I don't know. It just never ends with you, man. You're just like, I don't want to
ask. Can I ask? Can I ask?
You're like, can I have basic equipment that like supports the mission? Like, come on, man. Like, you know, can we have any kind of plan about the mission? Can we have some kind of victory condition?
Like when we sent the Marines to Afghanistan, and when all the Humvees arrived, they had no armor plates. So like, what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, did you see the Horse Soldiers movie? They went over there and they found some horses, and they flew helicopters or something. You know, because that's what we do. Yeah, so that's our victory conditions. If you loved Afghanistan and Iraq, you'll love Ukraine.
Yeah.
Even more danger with a more modern adversary with even less clear victory conditions. Like, at least we were looking for like WMDs and stuff in you know, the Middle East.
At least we lied and said we had a plan.
Yeah, I mean, this one was just like, I don't know. I mean, it's like those people who go to college and they'd have no idea what their major is, and they're just like, I don't know. I just want to find myself, just experiment and see what's out there.
There's got to be a cheaper way to find yourself. So I get why Biden doesn't want to try to define the victory conditions. I get that. We've all seen what happened in Afghanistan, and the truth is, he's not good at it.
Well, yeah, he defined that as a victory. So, I mean, the Ukrainians, I mean, I mean, $33 billion, I mean, that goes quite a long ways, but, I mean, the price is pretty steep when that's coming from America.
Maybe Biden's just accepting his limits, and he understands that he doesn't know what victory looks like, and he's just pawning it off on another country. You guys, hopefully you're better at this whole victory thing. Maybe, you know, because with Biden, he armed our enemies, created a terrorist nation, and left $90 billion of equipment to them, and also left Americans behind. Great job. That was not a great victory.
Apparently, he also armed the Russians.
Oh, but don't worry. All his failures were made up by him killing, was it 10 kids?
It was 13, I believe.
13.
Yes.
That made it better.
Yes.
Right? He showed them, those terrorists are never going to go after him again, because he demonstrated how he can kill kids.
Yeah. Kids don't stand a chance.
And also aid workers. God, fuck aid workers, right? You know, drop a bomb on their heads.
I mean,
I support Biden.
Aid workers mostly just like steal American taxpayer money and like launder it into like international gangs and terrorists. So like, I'm not real supportive of them either.
I don't understand why we even need AIDS workers. Like, why do we need people to spread AIDS around?
Well, I mean, how else would the CIA get it out there, Dyer?
Through AIDS workers.
Yes,
got it.
Exactly.
So, but maybe we also don't want to have someone determining, you know, what the victory conditions are and our scope of involvement. Maybe we shouldn't have it be the Ukrainians either.
Why
maybe?
not? Are you saying that maybe they're biased?
Yeah, they might be a little biased. I have a crazy idea. How about we have someone who is a military professional and is actually competent in that position, have them set the
Because, Dyer, you would have to go down the chain to find somebody competent in the military. You'd have to go down the chain to like
me.
You.
Do it. Maybe Secretary of Defense, please.
Your hands have to be at least this callous to be the commander-in-chief.
Yes, there'll be a callous measurement.
When you run for office and I'm your campaign director, we are going to do an ad campaign about your callous hands.
You have to be able to run a razor blade across the pad of your hand and it not bleed.
It dulls the blade. Alrighty. Well, so I mean, if we're not going to have victory in Ukraine, I mean, at least we can have victory on one front. Dyer, what has Joe Biden renewed his declaration of victory on this week?
Oh, so he renewed his dedication to turning the U.S. military green.
I thought you guys were already green, like multicam or.
No. I don't mean turn the uniforms green. They're mostly green already, except for those damn Navy boys. But
why did you say it like that?
I don't know. I was trying to put a funny inflection on it. It really came out weird.
Yeah, weird is one way to say it.
I'm gonna go with it.
In the Navy.
Anyway. So Biden wants all the vehicles in the military to run on green fuel, aka like electric vehicles. Electric vehicles.
We're
That's
going
what
to
he wants.
completely, but before we're going to start the process where every vehicle in the United States military, every vehicle is going to be climate friendly. Every vehicle. We're going to have I mean it.
I would assume that he means also the flying vehicles, correct?
Yeah.
Can you imagine the green F-35? Like how excited about
Can
that?
you imagine in air refueling with electric cables?
Well, no, Dyer, it would be a tube full of dead babies because as we went over 2 weeks ago, dead babies are green biofuels. There's a story from 2 weeks ago if you guys missed that one. Not kidding, not a joke, guys. So I don't know. It could be either green electricity or babies. It's hard to say.
My car is baby powered.
I feel like that would clog the turbofans a little bit, the fuel injectors. But
I'm sure it's not how they're injecting it into the engine. Not that this is even a real thing. I don't know why I'm saying
why would
that.
you assume that they're not injected into the engine?
Just chop them up. It wouldn't do anything for the fuel mixture.
But it would be green.
It'd probably be red, actually. So electric is not green. It's not climate friendly in the way they mean it, because electric requires lithium mines and currently coal power plants. Unless you're going to go nuclear.
Yeah. No, well, there's some. As for a green fleet, there are some exotic technologies on the horizon with micronuclear reactors, possibly microfusion reactors, hydrogen fuel cell technology. There's a lot of different stuff that's on the horizon that I'm sure will be powering the 2050s military, but not now, and not because it's green, but because it'll have more energy density than regular kerosene.
Right.
That's the only reason why. In fact, I believe there are several planes, larger carrier planes that are nuclear, or at least Skunk Works has nuclear. I don't know if they're actually in use right now. Maybe not officially, but I do know that Lockheed was working on that for quite a while. That they were stuffing micronuclear reactors into big carrier planes. So we are moving towards that direction. But you know what the Democrats mean when they're talking about green energy, and it's not about cool like nuclear fusion technology.
Yeah, Fox. They will never have heard what you just said.
Yeah,
that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about electric. They had a document coming out about how their plans to electrify the military fleet. Yes, making electric tanks.
Probably the most energy intensive for per distance traveled would probably be the Navy, and the Navy is largely nuclear already.
Yep.
So they're already largely green. And they're using the new reactors, the best reactors that don't produce nuclear waste. Those are the Gen 5 and 6 reactors. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't see us being able to efficiently pack that technology into a fighter craft anytime soon. I think we can stuff it into a carrier craft sometime sooner. But as for military vehicles, you guys already got a hard time with, just making sure that some of these vehicles run in the rough environments that we're trying to run them in, like the deserts and cold areas and stuff like that. And I think that you're going to have a much better time with better understood, more durable, older technology with combustion than you are trying to troubleshoot a nuclear reactor on your Humvee in the middle of a sandstorm.
Yeah, we're not at the point where the technology for nuclear reactors in every tank is viable yet. And now that's a far down the road thing. It's very possible, but that's not what they're talking about. That's not what they're trying to do here.
Exactly.
And what they're trying to do is make our fleet required on our current electrical system be able to, and we don't create enough electricity for our houses as it is. We still have brownouts in California, so we're trying to.
Wouldn't that be so great though? Is like you've got a lot of analog propulsion systems already, and we're just going to turn them all into digital, like much more susceptible to EMP attacks. Like infinitely more susceptible to an EMP attack.
So it creates a more vulnerable system. It is going to affect a already taxed domestic power production system. It would require a production of lithium that we don't have, and also the requirement.
Oh, well, we would just buy it from China, Dyer. We'll buy it from China.
That's what I'm getting at. It would make us dependent on our adversaries for the fuel for our military machine. That's insane. And then it would way overcomplicate resupply and refueling in combat, where there's not going to be electricity and fuel that's easily be able to be transported to our vehicles in the field.
Sounds like a great idea. It checks all the boxes.
It's a terrible idea.
All right. You know what's a good idea is our border.
We don't currently have one.
Yes, the border. It's a good idea on paper. We don't currently have one. So we got up on screen here. So, well, maybe we do. So we got the newest numbers in for border encounters, and they're basically off the charts. So I was Dyer chastised me and admonished me earlier before the show, but I was surprised to find that in March of 2022, just 2 months ago, we had the highest. It was the record again for the highest number of border crossings. Now I guess it's not super surprising that we have a record again. I just nobody talked about it because we were hitting records for border crossings every month for like a year straight. And just nobody talks about it anymore. We haven't talked about it in probably about 3 months. I haven't done anything big on the border. And yeah, so the numbers are in, and they are just absolutely off the charts. Now, border crossings are recorded from October to October, so the calendar year is a little bit offset. But if we look at, I'm on cbp.gov. If we look at the number of border crossings, so you look at for single adult males, you look at the 2019 stats, you look at the 2020 stats, and the 2019 stats, that's all pre-COVID. That has nothing to do with COVID whatsoever. You've got 2020, which was peak COVID, and a little bit of a drop-off, not much, but a little bit. Pretty comparable to 2019, though. Then you got 2021. What happened in 2021? And you just see it just goes rockets, double, triple, almost quadruple 2020. And let's look at 2022, which is year to date. So that would be October of 2021 to now. So you got about 6-7 months in there. And that thing is already almost caught up to the full year of 2021. We, as bad as 2021 was, we are currently on track to surpass it by maybe like July. I mean, it is cranking fast. And we were talking about this a little bit before the show, Dyer, is the seasonality. So you can see from November 29 or from 2019 and 2020, which are the orange and the red lines. There's some seasonality here where it's at a lower level. It stays at a consistently low level through the spring, fall, and winter time. And then towards the end of spring into summertime, you get this peak, and then it falls back off as it gets colder. And you look at the blue line. The blue line was 2021, and it goes up, and it just stays up. It doesn't. There's no seasonality to it whatsoever. It did not drop off at all in the winter months. In fact, it kept going up a little bit. It maintained its level all the way up until the end of spring this year. And then what did we see in the end of spring this year? Well, it used that new increased level as a springboard for another seasonal increase. But it never had the seasonal decrease. It's just always more, and there's not any like ebb and flow to it. It's just ebb. It's just, or just flow, I guess. Yeah, it's just flow and then flow. It used to be up and down, and then it was up, and then it's up and level, up and level, up and level, instead of up and down, up and down. Yeah, I mean, this is. What do you got to say about this, Dyer?
I thought it was funny when you told me that you were surprised. Like, each month they keep saying it's worse than the previous month, and they completely there was no drop off during this seasonal drop off.
Yeah, I certainly consider myself to be a realist and not a pessimist, or not an optimist. I'm certainly not an optimist, but like compared to you, compared to you, I'm a wide-eyed dreamer.
Yeah, fairly. So I actually had a laugh at that. That's but yeah, it's pretty fucking bad right now. It's only getting worse than trending up.
Are you sure it's bad, Dyer? Because I have this video here from Secretary Mayorkas.
We have effectively managed an unprecedented number of non-citizens seeking to enter the United States.
Okay, managing a failure is not a success.
Yeah, Dyer, I mean, he's, let's just hear it again. Let's just hear it again. I mean...
Yet, we have effectively managed an unprecedented number of non-citizens seeking to enter the United States.
Okay, to relate this to something that's closer to me, so obviously you'll be able to understand something more that's closer to my my level of understanding. Imagine a base commander has someone puts out an order that causes a piece of equipment to malfunction and catch fire and burns down the base. And then on his next OPR, he writes a bullet about how he effectively managed the evacuation of 5,000 personnel from a base.
I say get that guy a medal.
And then they get this guy a medal because he effectively managed this major disaster he caused.
Well, and sometimes in peacetime, Dyer, you gotta make your own luck.
Like, you don't get kudos for managing the negative effects of something you're doing. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And then I think in his head, he thinks that was a cool thing to say. Like, this is an accomplishment.
Yeah. And again, so you see how well he's managing the border crisis, and in his own words, how he feels that he's managing it. And it really makes you wonder, what are they going to do with the DGB? What are they going to do with the Disinformation Governance Board? And what is success for Mayorkas? What is that going to look like when that starts get going? Let's hear. So, as Mayorkas says they did a good job. Dyer says they did a bad job. We'll let you, the viewer, decide. Who am I to say who did a good or a bad job? But while Mayorkas says that they did a good job, just in case you're a doubter like Dyer, he also gives an excuse for why maybe you might think he was doing a bad job.
Again, you can sit there and deny that the actions you took, your policies, have sent the signal to the world. And again, end Title 42, it is the final signal that our border is completely open. You even stopped calling it apprehension. Now it's just encounter. You encounter. You're managing the process by making that processing and dispersing so much more efficient.
I would like to finish my answer.
Well, you're not answering the question. You're just dodging it.
No, I've already answered your question, Senator, if I may, that we do not believe the policies of this administration have caused the migration challenge that actually...
Okay, that's you're living in an alternate reality.
So, yeah, I mean, they're doing a good job, and even though they're doing a good job, the excuse is that, well, it's not the policies that are causing them to not do a good job, so... there you have it, Dyer. I mean, that's going to be an airtight argument if I've ever seen one. I can't imagine that you have any rebuttal to that.
Yeah, delusion is not is not a plan.
But Mayorkas, I I do actually think that Mayorkas should be arrested. I think that what he's doing with the Disinformation Governance Board is illegal to the point that he should be arrested. It's not treasonous. I don't think it would fall under that as a legal category.
How is it not in violation of the First Amendment?
But yes, no, it's an absurd violation of many constitutional amendments. I think the search and seizure would be in that as well. And so I think that he should be arrested on those grounds for abusing government assets. I mean, Dyer, if you were to leverage some of the intel assets that you have available at your disposal to perhaps spy on me, for instance, I mean, is that allowed, or is that a crime that you would be arrested for?
Who told you I was doing that?
You did multiple times, and you threatened me, telling me that you know where I sleep at night, and that if I ever told anybody that you're,
that was Drunk Dyer, all right. And what Drunk Dyer does is that it's different.
I told you I was spying on you in confidence. How dare you?
If I did that, I would be in a lot of trouble.
I mean, I guess if you work at the NSA, that's actually kosher. It's usually like par for the course, but
laudable.
In theory, it is illegal to the point of being arrested if you are leveraging government assets for illegal activities against American civilians, especially. And that's what Mayorkas is doing. I believe the creation of the DGB is illegal. I think Mayorkas knows that it's illegal, and I believe that it's illegal to the threshold that he should be arrested on site whenever the next administration is elected. And the Department of Justice, if it was truly a nonpartisan body, that they would have arrested him already.
I agree with you. Also, Trevor came up with a much better analogy than I did. He said Pearl Harbor effectively managed the entry of many Japanese citizens into Hawaii.
That is not true. Many of those Japanese citizens died upon impact with the water barriers that were the Arizona.
That was how they managed it.
Yes.
No one said they had to be alive.
Rest in peace, USS Arizona.
Yes. Much said. Anyways, our last story.
I think that was it.
All right.
I think we did it. We did it, Dyer.
I think that was a great show. Only a little bit depressing. My soul is only a little bit darker than it was before the show started. So
darker than black.
There are degrees of black. Just look into a black hole. Tell me.
There's just sizes of it. It's just the same. It's the same black. It's just a different size.
That was not really a serious.
We've
statement.
increased
a joke.
We've increased the mass of Dyer's soul.
It's now a more massive soul. Thanks. Anyways, it's been a great show. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you so much for the comments and donations. We'll see you guys next week. My wife is demanding my attention immediately.
Yes, Dyer must provide her motherhood.
I already did it 4 times. She wants more practice.
Go make some bread. Haven't done that one in a while. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much. I believe we will be skipping next week as well because I am busy next weekend. We apologize. This happens every summer. Is that we both just get really busy, so we apologize for that. Trying to do this as frequently as possible, but next week we will have to skip, and we'll be back the week after.
Yep. See you then.
Alrighty, guys.
Direwolf out.
Signing off. See you guys.